In this video, I will be demonstrating a variety of reed farming techniques. Reeds, also known as sugarcane, according to the tooltip, can grow on either dirt or sand and must be directly adjacent to water. The simplest kind of reed farm is manually harvested, and an optimal layout for such a reed farm would be one like this. There you can see the water placement, and in this setup each water has exactly 4 reeds next to it. So essentially it's just this plus pattern tessellated over a large area, and that gives you the most amount of reeds you can possibly get per amount of surface area. And it's easy enough to harvest. You just simply walk right over it while you punch it down. And if you can't find any lily pads, you could probably use half blocks. It makes it a little bit bumpier, but it still works. This is by far the simplest way to do a reed farm. It requires least amount of water, least amount of resources, but the most amount of work to harvest it. So if you're looking for an automated reed farm, there are several options. The first one we have here is what most people use as a standard reed farm. You have 2 pistons which push the top 2 reeds off of the bottom and into a water stream that brings the collected reeds to the player. Now, in order to power 2 pistons like this, you either need to have a repeater powering the top piston or a redstone torch directly behind the top piston, and that will cause both pistons to extend. It doesn't work with the bottom one. It has to be the top. In this, I've chosen to use the torches because the redstone repeaters are more expensive resource-wise, and it works just the same. It takes the same amount of space pretty much. So in this, it's 8 reeds long because the water streams can go 8 blocks. And so there should be, 32 possible reeds collected from this device. So when we flip the switch, so you can see, almost all the reeds are collected. There's a couple that get stuck on the sides. Occasionally some will get stuck on the top. But for the most part, let's see how many we got. We got 30 reeds out of a possible 32. That's not bad. The wiring is also very simple. I just have it hooked up to a lever here, but for your automation needs you can change that however you like. And then just a simple array of redstone torches positioned directly behind the double pistons. You should note that this farm can be stacked. You can put them next to each other horizontally and vertically, and you can link them together, especially vertically, such that when you flip the one lever, all the farms are harvested. So here we have 64 reeds. Yeah, here's an example of what I was saying. They can get stuck on the top. And then very soon, yep, that's all of them. Collect our reeds. So we got 56 reeds there out of a potential 64. So that's also pretty good. And potentially you could have, a very large array or a very large vertical stack of these and harvest a whole lot of reeds at once. The wiring for this is also pretty simple. It's the same for the bottom layer, and then I just have a couple redstone torches to bring the signal up to the next layer. And then if you were to have another layer, you could have an extra block extending off this side and then have that go up vertically on this side and go back across with the next layer of pistons. So this is a pretty good setup, but it takes quite a lot of resources. You need 2 pistons per 2 reeds, so 1 piston per reed that's going to be harvested from your contraption. And that's a lot of pistons. So I came up with a couple designs that use far fewer pistons and also far fewer redstone if you are, you don't have a lot of resources. So in this design here, this is the first one I came up with, the pistons extend pushing out the middle block, and then as soon as that happens, this piston retracts and water will flow along the top of the pistons, pushing the top reeds all the way up to your collection point. I'll show you this after I change it to day. Alright, we're back. So after I flip this lever, these middle pistons will extend, and then the water will flow along the top of them. So you'll notice there's a couple problems with this design, in that a lot of the reeds seem to get stuck in between the piston and the water there, and also we have the same number pretty much getting stuck on the sides as we had with the other farm. So it's not exactly the most efficient way to do this, but you do save a lot of resources. So let's see how many we got. Again, it's out of 32. 24. It's not too great. As you can imagine, this design could be improved, so that's what I came up with over here. The difference between these two is that instead of using normal pistons, we're using sticky pistons here. So this design is alright if you can't find any slimes and you don't have any slime balls, but once you have a supply of slime balls and you can use sticky pistons, then we can obviate the problem of reeds getting stuck between the piston and the water here in the space, and we'll get a much greater return on our reeds. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you that. Flip the switch, and here we go. As you can see, we're not getting as many stuck reeds this time. There we are. $31. That's pretty good. That's actually even better than that. Usually this farm and this farm have about the same return. You get 30 about reeds each time. And however, this one sacrifices slime balls, and you get to save half your pistons, and also a lot of redstone. Some notes about this: it's not quite as stackable as that version because you have these water things here. You could of course just raise the second layer up a couple extra blocks and that would work fine, or you could move the water blocks over to behind the device, but then you'd have to shorten your entire farm by like 2 or so blocks because there isn't room. The water can't stretch all the way across the top pistons. Redstone wiring is pretty simple again. We just have, the pistons are right here, and redstone wire goes right over it, and then it powers this block. Block is power is inverted by the torch and keeps the non-sticky piston here holding up the water, and it's the same on this farm over here. This torch inverts the signal and keeps the piston extended. And so that's a pretty simple way to make a reed farm. One thing you should note about this design is that if you don't have, for example, signs here and also some kind of solid block in the back to keep the water from escaping, things can get pretty messy. For example, if I didn't have this sign here, and yeah, let me just show you. If I didn't have the sign there, I'll turn on the water. It worked fine now, but then when you turn it off, water gets everywhere and screws everything up. So in this design, you're going to want to make sure that you have everything sealed off even when the pistons are retracted and the water flows down. You don't have to worry about, we'll see over here, you don't have to worry about the water when it comes down destroying the bottom blocks here, because it won't. So these are some pretty basic reed farm designs. If you want a download link to this world, ask for it in the comments, and if enough people want it, then I'll put a link in the description. Otherwise, I think I fairly well covered everything here. So good luck with your reed farms. They're especially important now that we have enchantment tables and we need all our bookcases. So happy farming!